Hi, everybody. I'm Matt Hill. I am blessed to be here with, a family member as well as a new acquaintance. And, introduce yourself, Craig.
I'm Craig Brown with UVT.
Underground Vision Technologies. And what about you, buddy?
Jody, Whiteneck with Craig with UVT.
Well, I came up here because Craig has a very innovative technology, and man, this is something. Tell everybody about what you guys are doing with Underground Vision.
Well, the technology we developed is we started hearing about all the plugged abandoned oil wells in the U.S. that were leaking methane gas.
Yep.
And the target was, could we figure out a way cheaper, faster, smoother than the conventional way of plugging? Well, we went to the University of Tulsa, and we have a good relationship with them, and started talking to their petroleum engineers, their teachers, their people there with doctorate, and they said the way we're doing it today is not a good way of plugging, because
it's the best way they'd come up with so far.
Conventional way of plugging doesn't work, because when you go in and you pump cement, and we all know cement cracks, well, they'll put a cement plug, set a bridge plug, cement plug. When the cement cracks, methane will escape and go back into the atmosphere. And the first target was, they said, if they're going to do it, they weren't too worried about it until all the federal funding came in place. And then everybody kind of panicked, because they're saying, we're better off to screw a swedge in that pipe and leave it alone than we are to go in and do conventional plugging. Because once you cut the pipe off and put cement plugs in there, that the methane migrates to the surface, they immediately have no way of getting back in to fight the problem. So we decided to trying to figure out how to build a seal that would literally shut 100% of methane off coming up the well. And in doing so, we bought a camera, a high definition camera, where you can see, got side view, down view. And what we'll do is go into a well now and run down and find the perforations and check and see if there's any holes in the pipe, integrity of the pipe. We'll be able to run this seal down in there that I'm going to show you here in a minute how it goes together. It's a very simple process that hydraulically will set a brass seal into the well bore, and it's made up of brass and aluminum bronze, and it will not be eaten up by salt water. We had to get a metallurgist involved. We've got a proprietary slurry for our brass.
You created your own metal for this process.
Yes, because
that's cool.
The zinc content had to be low enough to keep the salt water from eating it up, but high enough to allow it to stretch.
Okay.
So we have our own type of brass. And what will happen is we will literally set this down in the well, and we have a truck that was built by Aberdeen Dynamics that's all computerized, everything's set up to where it eliminates mistakes of our people, because you literally program in the depth you want it, the size of pipe we're setting it in, then it knows how much pressure it takes to set this seal into the well and not damage the pipe.
Yeah, I can't be in a tremendous amount of pressure. It's got to be just the right amount, because that pipe's been there for a while, more than likely, if they're asking for these wells to be abandoned and plugged.
Yeah, what we found is we ran probably 200 of these seals that we've set now.
Yeah. Majority
of them above ground, because we got to have clearance to set them in the well.
Sure.
But we've set some in the wells where the operator said set them. It was all right with them for us to set them. But what we've got two of them that have been at the University of Tulsa under pressure now, and I'm going to ask 5 months. We're only allowed to put 200 pounds of pressure on them in the city limits of Tulsa. But they've set them out in the weather, they've brought them in the buildings, they have done everything they can do to make them leak, and there is no leakage.
So you've like you said earlier, you've cold welded these seals to the wall of the casing.
When you put this in here, we put it in with enough hydraulic pressure that 1.5 inches of this brass is cold welded to the pipe. And so when we ran all of our tests, we've done a pressure test from the bottom up, and we had to get a special pipe. And TU has witnessed all these tests. We have a white paper on it. We were able to go up to 10,000 pounds of pressure at the bottom, blowing up at it, and it leaked zero. We have pushed, I got scared on our press and stopped, but we went to 10.5 tons on the 5.5 seal, and it didn't come loose from the pipe. So we cut one out so we could see what it looked like. And it's literally, there's 1.5 inches of brass that is cold welded to that pipe. Scale doesn't hurt it. If you can get this in there, the thing weighs 80 pounds when we head down the hole with it. And as you can see, it has real sharp edges on it. So if our camera will go in the hole, this will go in the hole. And so when I got it all built, I had Jody come by, and Jody's had a lot of experience in oil fields. My experience was drilling rigs. Jody's was wireline services. So Jody came over, And he looked at it and he said, "Does it really work?" And I said, "Yeah, it really does work." And so
it's a good question.
And believe me, it didn't work at first. We probably set off 30 of them to get the right. This was
the metallurgy.
To get the, we have a metallurgist with us, to get the right slurry to where it would stretch, still be strong enough to cold weld and not rip. I mean, it looks simple when I put it together, but this has been almost 2 years getting
of research,
here. Yeah. And we knew once we could make this work, then we could build a liner. Because as we found in these old wells, so many of them have been abandoned because they got holes in their pipe up above. Mm-hmm. Well, we wanted to be able to set the seal and then be able to go in, if there's holes in the pipe, put the liner in there. And that way, if our seal was to fail.
This a lot longer.
Yes.
8-foot liners now.
Yeah, we'll be able to do 20 footers by the end of the month.
Yeah.
We had to get we have a hose, a one-of-a-kind hose that we had built that we paid to do the research on. But we have a hose that looks like it belongs on a grease gun. But you can literally, it will hold 800 pounds at 5,000 feet. It will work at 15,000 pounds of pressure. And it will go over 1 million times before the inside of it's ever supposed to have any damage.
So on these seals, you can do any size casing just about?
Any size. We can do 7-inch, we can do 9 5/8. The bigger, the easier, because the bigger the pipe, the more horsepower I can get with a hydraulic cylinder. We could custom build these to fit any well. I mean,
this is a game changer for plugging wells.
Well, and we got 2 little trucks.
Because also, and here's what interests me the most. In the future, you can go out and use those wells again.
Yes, I mean that's the whole thing that
when you plug in abandoned wells now, that's it.
It's gone forever.
This will change that.
Yeah, and I can show you. Want me to put it together and show you how this thing goes together?
Show us how it works.
Okay, you have a threaded rod. You have a shear pin. And what will happen is when you can see inside there. This is drilled out far enough to drop the rod in.
But this is all solid.
But from here on down, this is solid. So whenever I put this in here, I have a shear pin. If I can get the hole. There we go. I have a shear pin. Now you have a threaded rod up. And this is basically the brass. This is it. You can see it's solid from here up. It's solid other than the hole drilled through it. And there's a reason for that. We'll get to it. You put this on here. Then you have a hydraulic.
That's the entirety of the seal.
The hydraulic system right here. You put this on, it's a one-way hydraulic cylinder. By doing that, you screw the nut down on top of it, and the only thing that travels is a cylinder here in the center. And we have a hydraulic hose that hooks onto here. That's that hydraulic hose. So we only have one thing going down the hole. This is it. When we know the pressures that I'm not going to go to right now but we have the pressures where we've tested for 5.5, 4.5, 7-inch pipe to be able to put this to the wall, not damage your casing, and what our truck's set up with those numbers in it because we have a computer on the truck.
So all this is doing is expanding that.
This is pulling this up into here where this cylinder goes up. It's pushing against this nut and it's pulling up, and you have a 6-inch travel right here. Yep. That travels up against this nut, and you go to a certain amount of pressure, and it will be set on the wall. And then the computer will ask our guys, are you ready for step 2? They punch yes. It's pre-programmed in there to shear the pin off. It'll increase to that shear point, but you've already bottomed this out, and it is now then all you're doing is pulling against the shear pin. You're not pulling against the wall, and then it will go on up and shear it off.
And then that mechanism just comes out.
This right here comes out of the hole, and as that, I didn't bring the one up that was a finished product. I have one that's, you can see it. I thought I brought it up here.
It's okay. I mean, that's essentially, this is up in here.
This is up in here.
And now it's cold welded into the wellbore.
This amount of it's cold welded in there solid.
And no gas, no fluids is getting by ever until you want to.
And we haven't talked to operators yet, but on fluid level, water floods, how a lot of the operators are fighting fluid levels in their, the corporation commission will come out and make them either pump one down or plug it. We can set this seal in at the depth the corporation commissions allow them their water to get to. Boom, they don't have to pump that well again. We're here to help. We're here as an environmental company trying to get rid of methane. This can cross back over to the oil field people to save them a tremendous amount of money. Because I've been oil field my whole life. And
well, every investor out there, we talked about this, the ESG is now, upon us. Mm-hmm. And this is a game changer for our industry.
We
can go out, and really do. Now, you were talking to me earlier. How many wells do you think are on the books to be plugged right now?
Well, Oklahoma shows a recording of 17,000. And my wife has all the numbers because she does most of the research, but there is, according to McGill, there's 285,000 in Oklahoma.
Just in Oklahoma. So nationwide, then, what were we?
What were the numbers? 3.2 million.
3.2 million wells possibly need to be plugged right now. Yet now we have the technology not to abandon them. Mm-hmm. They can just be utilized sometime in the future when we have better technology to go and harvest the resources left over, or recharge, like you said.
Yeah,
some of the wells in
we talked to them in Wyoming, and they have a coal bed methane up there that they feel like they've run tests on, that if they can seal them, they'll actually recharge themselves over a period of time. And if they plug them with cement and go back in and drill the cement out after this period of time, if it doesn't leak, this wouldn't leak. They can recharge themselves, and they really don't want to drill the cement out to take a chance on contaminating the zone again when they're going in there drilling everything out. With this, I mean, it's just brass and aluminum bronze. It's going to go right out. But the minute we built this, we immediately went to trying to figure out how to do a liner. We figured if we could pull this through this, we could put a brass liner in. And then Jody came in and said, wait a minute, there's a tremendous safety factor. I never was in the wireline business. Jody was. And Jody can tell you the safety factor compared to the conventional way of setting bridge plug and cement work.
Yeah, it's kind of a twofold thing. First and foremost is just the intrinsic safety value built into this entire system. Everything in the oil field, with the exception of about 2%, are set with explosive over electric setting tools. That's how you send off everything downhole. That's how you set your plugs, your packers, anything else that needs done perforating is all done with electricity and explosives.
And this is just pressure.
This is
hydraulic pressure.
Pressure only. No electricity, no explosives, which that right there takes 90% of the risk out of anything related to wireline. The problem with it is that stray current, stray voltage current from anything else in the oil field. Well, in the world that we live in now, everything's connected by flow lines. You've got heater treaters, you've got cathodic protection, you've got neighboring wells that you have to shut in just to make it safe enough to work on a well here. So you're shutting down production, plus all the other risks you take. But you take an explosive setting tool and a normal wireline plug, you set everything off of releasable slips. We're running an 80 to 100-year-old casing. These pipe is old enough that it cannot take the jar and the pounding from the slips or the things that hold a conventional wireline plug in. You damage the casing, cause your own leaks, which the industry, that's been the best thing out there for the last 40 or 50 years. But the plug and abandon, when you set a wireline plug, that doesn't hold. So then you dump cement on top of it to overcome the leaking problem, but the cement doesn't hold either, and the entire industry knows that. Your cement is suspect to everything in the hole the same as the plug is, and all of your corrosive fluids eat the cement the same as they do the wireline plug. The advantage to this, and
this expandable liner from pressure.
Liner, which there have been a few what they call casing patches on the market.
And hey, I have a good friend that sells the casing patches, and they work. They're amazing for what they are
when you get them to work, and when they work properly.
But this is brand new.
This is brand new. The advantage to this versus a casing patch is there's no rig time, there's no stick pipe to go in and dress it up, mill the inside, or clean it up. Our ID is consistent. The entire length of the sleeve, you can run right back in the hole. But the ultimate saving grace to every bit of it is that this eliminates the conventional plug and abandon, where you dump a plug, you dump cement that don't work, but then they cut the pipe off. You have just eliminated any chance that you have without a humongous expenditure to go back in and try to fix a problem.
People drill new wells instead, right?
Right, you drill new wells, so you've got pipe out here cut off under the ground that no one can reach with things in them that are not doing what they're designed to do, which is why we're in the situation we're in today. But cold welding, catching the entire circumference of the pipe without the slips.
Yeah, this is crazy how much this is, just completely bolstered this entire piece of casing.
Well, see, if you'll notice,
and it's already cut.
California had us do that. They wanted to know if we could.
For, that would be perfs.
Perfs, yes, sir.
But that covers it all.
No, so
we had the pipe cut in two and welded on one side so it'd be crooked.
Yep.
Because California had asked us if we could actually, where earthquakes had sheared their pipe off.
So, hey, our entire industry is very well aware of seismicity. It's not just California; it's Oklahoma and Texas and Haynesville. There's no place we don't experience it. We all see that when the casing designs nowadays with getting thicker casing because everything's happening downhole and pressures are on that casing. So.
It's a cool system, and
it is. It's hands down better than anything I've seen after 30 years in the industry. It's just the simplicity behind it, with the problems that it solves is just, it's a no-brainer, because you've taken the danger out of all the downhole work when it comes to wireline by eliminating the electricity and the explosives. This is a system more people can run. You can run with better efficiency and with a whole lot less damage to the neighbors, shutting in neighboring wells, shutting down equipment that needs to run by using this system. It's just, like I said, I'm on board because it's genius. Everything behind it is.
I'm on board. You get a free sponsorship right now on my podcast. Yeah, you don't have to pay for this. Yeah. No one does.
Well, that is it's pretty, and they all look and say, well, who did this? We've had some great people involved in this.
Sure, you guys.
We actually have one company, Matt, that will, and Jody's associated with, Go Bob Pipe. They go out, they will pay the money to pull the rods and tubing out of these abandoned wells. We can literally bid one so they know what it costs instead of going, well, plug one and you bid it in at $30,000 and you get out there and it costs them $200. Yeah. Bob will pull the pipe because he sells it to farmers, Bill Gates.
So it's part of the plugging and abandoning process where they're making money on the recovery of the other stuff down the hole, and this is just included.
Yeah.
Wow.
We go in and when we pull in with Art, now he's not with UVT.
Sure.
But he's a separate entity that will go out, pay to pull the rods and tubing.
So what are we going to do for all the abandoned wells that need to be plugged now, but in a more responsible way, but don't have anybody associated with them for the costs? That's where we're all looking at across the nation as to, well, who's going to pay for this on this well?
Well, here's what,
going to have government funds come into play.
Yeah, they're going to have to.
Yeah.
And this is what TU was afraid of. They weren't plugging enough of them in Oklahoma to be an issue. Okay. If they get government funding here in Oklahoma and they go out and plug 1,000 of them conventionally, the way they're doing them, shooting off pipe, we're going to have a disaster here in a few years when that starts cracking.
The methane
starts coming out of the ground. We're better off to just leave them alone than do what they're getting ready to do by shooting off pipe. There's people who don't agree with us, but we've been in, this is all TU does, is study cement, study downhole pressures.
If you want to go a step further, you can use this and then cement on top of that.
Well, sure.
I mean, there's extra steps you can take. If you're not completely convinced of this, fine, use this plus.
And what we've even discussed is, if it stays at a state level, like every state has its own organization, it takes them X amount of time to plan to go do one well. We can set 50 of these in 50 wells while they make their plan to go plug and abandon a well.
This is efficient and fast.
It's efficient and fast. We've shut down the methane. If it takes them 6 months or a year to figure out what they want to do, we've already solved the main ecological problem. Worry about the financial problem and how they want to do it later, but let us stop what's messing everything up in the beginning, because we can stay miles and years ahead of them, and then they can plug and abandon them however they want. However, I still think cutting the pipe off is the biggest mistake they're making, and hopefully this will lead to the elimination of that and solve future problems as we go.
Man, this gives me goosebumps.
Colorado has changed their regulations to use our seal.
Colorado's going to.
Colorado has looked at.
They listen.
Well, see, we have TU involved, we have OU involved, we have letters from professors at TU.
You went and talked to Caitlin at OU. Great guy. Hey, Caitlin, I know you're watching.
He totally, he agrees. Don't cut off pipe. Yeah. We've got professors from Florida State, from Chicago, and they're all saying the same thing. Look, guys, don't cut the pipe off. So I'm not saying we're so smart, we're telling y'all not to do this. I'm saying
my Uncle Craig's pretty smart.
I'm saying look to people. Just go to people. Let the people that study this every day listen to them. I mean, they're telling you don't do it, and some people are listening. Colorado was the first. Well, Wyoming, I think they're going to do something on theirs, but. We've presented this to the OCC here. They know we have it. Their regulation
on your, pretty soon.
OU's problem is, Oklahoma's problem is regulations say you have to use concrete. And Colorado changed one word and made it legal, or a permanent seal.
Okay.
And so that's how they got around it.
Well, there we go. Hey, state lawmakers, please, take a look at this technology. Before I let you guys go, there's one more thing that I'm very excited about you guys doing is all of this technology and equipment is being made and manufactured and employing people here in Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
This is all out of Tulsa, Oklahoma.
That's a unique thing. We have Aberdeen Dynamics. We have Houston Services. We have Go Bob Pipe. All these companies have come together. Sawyer Fabrications. All these companies have come together. And everybody understands, I'm an oilie. I didn't believe in this methane stuff. I thought, I do now.
Yeah. You
I
saw
mean,
it.
I got involved with TU and I understand what our issues are. And so does Jody and all of our partners. And, you know, we're not saying what people did 20 years. They thought they were doing right.
Everybody 20 years ago was doing the best they could at the time, you know, and
But
they didn't know that was not going to be an issue.
But you also got to be truthful about it. Oil men wrote those laws.
Yeah, maybe.
And they wanted that casing to use on another well.
Yep.
And this was a way of getting their casing out, moving to another well. Nothing wrong with it. They thought they were plugging them correct. Those laws were put into effect for that reason. And now then we're still using that law to do them today. And we've got universities
Times
and
have changed,
professors telling
technology
you,
have changed, and processes have changed.
you know, it's going to make a lot of people mad if they quit cutting off pipe because they're selling pipe, they're doing things with it. But if you want our grandkids, which I've got 17 of them, between me and my wife, that I do not want my grandkids out here fighting the same problem to a scale that's going to be huge compared to what we have now.
We have
if
the
they cut the
technology
pipe
right now to
off.
start fixing this. Well, I always talk about our industry is very good stewards of our natural resources. So anytime we see methane escaping, that's really a financial thing that we're not harvesting as well. So the stuff like this fascinates me. So thank you for doing this.
And then there's one more thing to bring up as well. You run into a lot of things too. There's a lot of areas out here in wireline everywhere I have. You run into issues with H2S, but also CO2 and CO2 floods. This sleeve, the sleeve that we set in here, is the same makeup as the seal. CO2, H2S, the carbonic acid created by CO2 and fluid will not eat this copper or the brass.
It'll eat that casing before.
It'll eat the casing before. So we still have the ability to go in on 30, 40-year-old CO2 floods and set sleeves to repair damaged casing, and that keeps these guys from plugging and walking away from CO2
And you can set
floods.
sleeves throughout more than one sleeve throughout each well too.
We just have to start at the bottom and work our way up.
Work at the bottom. This is great.
This is an even bigger selling point. I mean, granted, that seals it, but there are wells out there that are producing, that are still making people money that they're walking away
I love that.
from.
You guys created something for the environment and ended up also adding a bonus to the rest of the industry as well with the sleeve.
This is for the oil man and this is for the environmental.
It's for everybody.
Indeed, but I mean, it's just like I said, that's the reason I came back to help them and get back in the oil field. I walked away 2.5 years ago because I was tired of the status quo and everything, just do this. And I mean, I believe in what we've done in 30 years, the years my dad spent in the oil field. I believe in the oil field, but I also believe there's a better way to do things.
Amen. How do people get a hold of you, Craig? What's the website?
Ian, would you come in here and give us all the stuff? It's UVT.
It's Underground Vision
Underground
Technologies.
Vision Technology.
At Underground Vision Technologies if you want to send a note, but it's UVT Solutions.
UVTsolutions.com. People, please follow them on all the social platforms, of course, but go to UVTsolutions.com and check this out. And
also, we're going to do a demo on this at Sawyer Thursday morning at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, if I can get this up on the internet fast enough, please come to Tulsa to Sawyer Fabrication this Thursday.
10 o'clock. Just email Ann because they're going to cook hamburgers out here and stuff. We just like to know how many we got to.
And if you don't make this one, just hit up Craig. He's honored to come show you this technology anytime. All right. Well, I'll let you guys out of here and we'll get back to this test.
All right.
Take care.
Thank you.